nuclei. We discussed about the nucleus and as well as mass defect and binding energy. Now we are going to discuss about nuclear force. What is meant by the nuclear force? Means we know that the fundamental forces are in nature are four. In that case, the first one is considered as a gravitational force, and second one is electromagnetic force. That is also called as Coulombic force, and third one weak nuclear force, and the next one is a strong nuclear force. These are the four fundamental forces are in nature. In that case, what is first of all meant by the nuclear force? So nuclear force is nothing but when we know that the proton is having the positive charge and neutron is uncharged particle lies in the nucleus. Proton and neutrons are lies in the nucleus. Consider it's an atom and it's a nucleus. So inner order of its radius will be 10 to the power of minus 15 meter. The radius of the nuclei will be 10 to the power of minus 15 meter, equal to, that is called as 1 Fermi. That is 1 Fermi. The force, this proton and neutrons called as nucleons, the force will act on the nucleons to hold together in nuclei. The force is called as a nuclear force, because of we know that proton having positive charge, number of positive charges are lie in the number of protons are lies in the nucleus. So due to the repulsion force between the positive charges, even though the protons lies in the nucleus, because of some of the force which is acting on the protons to be together, the protons and neutrons together, that force is called as a nuclear force. Due to that nuclear force, the protons and neutrons are lies in the nucleus together. So the nuclear force is having also some of the properties, means the nucleus having some properties, nuclear force which acts that the nuclear force is a attractive. The properties of those are nuclear forces are attractive and charge independent, and strong short range forces, non-central and exchange forces, and saturated forces in nature and strongest in nature. These are the properties of nuclear forces. In that case, the first one is attractive and charge independent. Attractive means due to the attractional force between the protons and neutrons, the nuclear charge will be acts between them, the proton and neutron and proton. Between the proton neutron and neutron, some attraction force will be acts, that is nuclear force acts between them. So that's why the protons or neutrons can be together in the nucleus, so that the nuclear forces are attractive forces. Nuclear forces are attractive forces because of the between the, even though proton neutron and neutron, between them the force is acting, so that's why the protons and neutrons are being together in the nucleus. So that's why that the one of the property of a nuclear force is attractive. And the next one is charge independent. What is meant by the charge independent? Means the nuclear force does not depend on the charge of that atoms, whatever the nucleus which has taken, it does not depend on the charges. If in case of even though the more charge is having the particles also, nucleus also, the nuclear force is same between the protons and neutrons and everything, between the attraction force is acts the same. So that's why we can say that the charge independent nuclear forces are charge independent forces. In order of that force of gravitational force, if we take in the ratio of gravitational force, Coulombic force, and force of nuclear force, if we take in that, the ratios 1 is to 10 to the power of 36 is to 10 to the power of 38 be the ratio of the forces. Means the gravitational force is having the less amount of force, means the weakest force, and Coulombic force after the 10 to the power of 36, and here 10 to the power of 38 with the nuclear force. The strongest force in nature is a nuclear force, strong nuclear force. So that Here it is the nuclear force is charged independent. It does not depend on the charge of an atom, charge of a nuclei, which is acting even though if the charge is more also, it does not depend on the charge. The nuclear force is acting is between them is same. The next one is short range forces. What is meant by the short range forces? Means if in case of attraction between the nucleons, between them two, the distance between the two nucleons will be the less 1 Fermi or less than 1 Fermi. 1 Fermi or less than 1 Fermi, then the rapidly action between the two nucleons will be action is more. If the distance is increases, then the attractional force between the nucleons will be decreases. If in case of the more than 2 Fermi, that action can be neglected. Means that it goes on decreasing up to, if in case of more than the 1 Fermi to up to 2 Fermi, the action will be going on decreases, and for after more than the 2 Fermi distance, the attraction between the nucleons will be 0. So that is a short range forces. If the distance is less, then the action will be acting, the attraction between them will be rapidly happens. The nucleus will get bonded together in short range. So that's why the nuclear forces we can say that is a short range forces. And the next one is a non-central. Non-central means the nuclear force does not act on only the central, it will attract, it will happens on the another nucleus also. Whenever the short range there, the nuclear force is also acting on that force. So that's why we can say that the nuclear forces are not non-central forces, only non-central forces. And the next one is exchange forces. Here also due to the attractional force, the force will be exchanged together. Then the next one is saturated forces in nature. These are the saturated forces in nature. We know that the strongest forces in nature is the nuclear forces. So that's why we can say that the nuclear forces are the saturated forces in nature and the strongest forces in nature. Nuclear forces are the strongest forces in nature. These are the properties of a nuclear force. So the one is attractive and charge independent. The next one is short range forces, and next one is non-central force. Nuclear forces are non-central, and nuclear forces are exchange forces, and nuclear forces are saturated forces in nature, and nuclear forces are strongest in nature. These are the properties of nuclear forces. And once again, nuclear forces definition is the forces that hold the nucleons together within the nucleus is called a nuclear force, because whenever the nuclear force is acting on the protons and neutrons and between the neutrons and between the protons, then only the protons overcoming the repulsion force in the like charge. So that the forces is called as a nuclear force.